hands off. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Great. Hello and welcome to the Learning Hub here at the Institute of Education at the University of Reading. We're here to talk about the Postgraduate Certificate in Early Years Practice that leads to Early Years Teacher status, and hopefully answer all the questions that you've been posing about it, and then look forward to seeing you apply a bit later on this year. My name is Jeff Taggart, I'm the Director of the programme, and I'm joined here today by Jo.
Hello, I'm Jo Elsey. I'm the Head of Early Years here at the Institute of Education, and I work with Jeff on the programme.
And I'm also joined here by Sarah.
Hello, I'm Sarah Cressy. I'm Deputy Manager of a playgroup in Wokingham, and I'm a current student on the EYTS programme.
So this programme has been running for quite some time now, about 10 years in fact. And just to give you a little bit of background about the programme, it came about because of some research that was carried out back in the 90s, which showed that children in their early years did a lot better in terms of their development and their education if there was at least somebody in the early years setting who was a graduate. And this research was so convincing in terms of its outcomes that some funding was put forward by central government that set up this new status that at the time was called Early Years Professional status, and the graduate status for people working in early years. And it's now been superseded by Early Years Teacher status. And so it really emphasises the educational nature of the role, and also its parity with other forms of initial teacher training. So a little bit about the programme itself. I would have to say, I guess, right at the outset, I'm sure Jo would agree with me, is that it's quite an intensive programme, mainly because it combines two kinds of learning in one. There is a very strong emphasis upon work-based learning. So whether you are already employed in a setting, or whether you're actually new to early years and you've never really worked in an early childhood setting before, you're both very welcome. But you'd be working quite a bit of the week with young children, literally on the floor a lot of the time, or some of the time, and really getting your hands dirty, as it were, finding out just how children learn, what they do, and really getting good at that aspect of the job. The other part of the course is based here at the Institute of Education, and currently we ask students to come along for one afternoon, an early evening a week, to take modules at master's level, which then lead on to the postgraduate part of the programme. So as you can see, it's quite an intensive piece of work, because you're trying to do two things at once. So we'll answer some other questions as we go on, but I just want to turn now to Jo, who's going to tell you about how you get onto the course.
Thank you, Jeff. The entry requirements for the programme are the same whether you're employed or not employed in the sector working with children birth to 5. So you have to have a GCSE, at least grade C and above, in maths, English and A science. You obviously have to have a degree because it's a graduate programme. And you also have to pass the professional skills tests for literacy and numeracy, and that's exactly the same entry requirements as other initial teacher training programmes have. So to actually apply, you can access our website, and it has all the details of how you can apply for the programme. We recruit all the way through the year, so there's no cut-off point really. You just have to achieve the entry requirements before the start of the programme. And it mirrors other initial teaching programmes in terms of what you have to achieve before you can come onto the programme. So I'm going to hand you over now to Jeff, and he's going to go through some of the different ways of applying the programmes.
Yes, so there is our website, which is www.reading.ac.uk, and if you search for our course on the website, you'll be able to apply through that. And we do have a dedicated email address, which you can contact us through, which you can find out on there, and we'll be very happy to answer any questions which you have actually about the application process, ahead of you applying. As Joe said, we do have quite a few interview mornings throughout the year, and during that time we have very informal interviews, one-to-one, and a little exercise to get you into groups talking with each other. Because one of the things that I think is quite important about this programme, and that differentiates it from other programmes of initial teacher training, is that it is actually a leadership qualification. And other programmes of initial teacher training will teach you, obviously, how to be a good teacher in the classroom, but a lot of this programme is about quality improvement overall. And I quite often liken it to some of those old executive training programmes from Marks and Spencer's or Sainsbury's, where someone at a graduate level would go in and work on the tills for a bit, and stack shelves and do all those kinds of things because they had to know how the industry works from the bottom up. But obviously they're not going to stay there doing those jobs for very long, but they need to know how the job works. So it's a leadership qualification. So we're interested in your potential for kind of hitting the ground running and coming up with ideas as to how you can make early years settings the best they can possibly be.
Can I just say, Jeff, that actually that's one of the big differences between, because one of the most frequently asked questions of Jeff and I is what's the difference between early years teacher status and qualified teacher status. And there are lots of similarities, but there are also lots of differences. And the main difference is the leadership element of the programme. There are 8 national standards, and one standard is specifically related to leadership. And when we talk about leadership, it's in the broadest sense. You are leaders of the curriculum. You don't have to be a manager or a deputy or a room leader. You are the person that is leading the quality of the practice that all the practitioners are experiencing with the children, and that's really important. One of the other differences is that it's the only status that specifically is there for people working from children birth to 5. And that is one of the key differences with qualified teacher status. So predominantly the majority of people with EYTS work in private organisations, private nurseries, independent schools, preschools, as Sarah works in, children's centres, but they're now changing quite a lot. Some of our practitioners have gone on to become local authority advisors. We have one who is the area manager for South East for Ofsted. We've got one of our alumni trainees who actually teaches now on our foundation degree. So the opportunities for you to develop your career are really, really broad and they're open to you. And I think it comes down to that, as Jeff said, with QTS you're taught to be a good teacher. With EYTS, you're taught to be a good teacher, but you're encouraged, your skills in leadership are developed further. And those are the skills that our trainees take out into that world of working with children birth to 5.
Great, thank you. Can I just say a little bit more about the assessment itself and the way in which you'll be judged to be good enough to be one of these amazing people. There's obviously the work-based side of the assessment. So there are the 8 national standards that Joe mentioned, and you'll be building up actual practical concrete evidence and different tangible forms that you're meeting these standards. And these will build up into a folder of some kind, and that's the way in which you use it at the moment anyway, but evidence against these standards, and then that's judged through 4 visits from a link tutor. So you have an assigned link tutor that actually comes and visits you, watches you working with children or other practitioners or parents, and then judges you against the standards. And what's nice about this process is that it's quite accumulative. So once you've got enough evidence against a standard, clearly you don't need any more. So we could say, well, you've met standard 3, early on because you're so good at it. So now just focus on all the others. You don't actually have to carry on right to the end. So there's that part of the assessment. And as I mentioned right at the beginning, talking about the modules that you study, the assessments there are quite varied in that we have written assignments. We also have presentations as well. And we also ask students to do assessments against the national standards themselves. So we might say, well, could you take standard 4, for example, and do a presentation in February about everything that you do in terms of covering standard 4. One of the lovely things I think about this programme, and I'm sure Joe will agree, is just how well the students support each other as well, and find out new ideas from each other. And it's been lovely to witness that this year, as I'm sure Sarah will go on to testify. So we try and have quite a broad creative approach to assessment, and as a result, the students that we end up producing are quite rounded practitioners as a result. Is there any other questions we want to deal with at the moment, you think?
Yeah, I think one of the other questions that I get asked is around the funding. So at the current moment, the programme is fully funded by the government because they are wanting the number of graduates to increase, graduates working with babies birth to 5 to actually increase. So the funding is there, and there are currently bursaries available depending on your degree classification. However, we are in the hands of the government, and that doesn't mean to say that will always carry on. So, but at the moment, we're very, very hopeful that funding will continue. One of the other things is really about how those bursaries work and how we pay them out. So lots of people are wanting to know. There's only one condition around the bursaries, that while you're studying, you can't work in a childcare education and care situation. You can work in a supermarket or in a bar or whatever, but you cannot work, if you're on the non-employed route, you cannot work in a childcare education situation. I think it's time to hand over to Sarah now.
She's been very patient.
Yeah, very patient. So Sarah, off you go. Tell us about the programme.
So before I did this programme, I'd been working in early years for about 5 years. And I'd done my level 3, and I just wanted to learn everything there was to know about early years, really. So I applied, and I was successful in my interview, and as soon as I started, I knew that I was going to love it. We had quite a nice small group, and we all managed to get on very well. I think the support I've got from all the tutors and the other practitioners in the group has just been incredible. I think I've probably improved myself as a practitioner by at least 3 times as good as I was. So, and I think that's down to bouncing ideas off everybody else, as well as all the lectures. So we've had specialist lectures in things like safeguarding, DT, numeracy, arts and crafts, everything you can think of. And we've done placements in, I've gone into a baby room for 0 to 2-year-olds, and currently they ask for 60 hours of that. I'm not sure if that will change, but and that was a complete eye-opening experience. I've not worked with such young children before, but knowing from the lectures we had on attachment and babies, I was able to go in there with a broad understanding and to actually put what I had learned in class into practice. So that was great. We did a Key Stage 1 placement as well, which again, to be honest, I wasn't really looking forward to. But when I got there, I could see the benefits of what we do in early years and where the children then go on in Key Stage 1. I think my confidence in this course is just, I'm confident in using everything I've learnt now. A lot of it was already there, but now I'm actually confident to apply it in the settings and to, like you say, to lead the other practitioners as well. And I'm confident to tell them if I think it could be done a different way. Yeah, and I think the course has just been brilliant.
Thank
So
you.
brilliant. In fact, I've gone on to apply for my master's. So
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sarah.
thank you.
So as you can see, it's quite a demanding program, but it's also, it can be an incredibly rewarding one as well. So I think we've dealt with quite a number of the questions which people have raised so far. We're always very willing to answer any further queries that people send to us between now and the start of the program in September. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.